November, Kerry footballer Louise Galvin and her boyfriend Alan Feely were looking forward to spending Christmas together like anyone else would be, planning a skiing trip, and things were going very, very well for the young couple indeed, both enjoying busy careers in Limerick. Louise is a physiotherapist and Alan was a PE teacher. Louise joins us this morning. How are you, Louise?
Hi, Ryan. How are you?
You've a hoarse throat because of the cold that's doing the rounds.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've succumbed to the common cold. So
we'll just put that into context to say that's what's wrong with you in that regard. But we're going to talk about Alan this morning and about you and him together, and maybe take us back to when you met, because we're 2014 now. So how far back do we have to go for your first encounter?
Well, we would have met in college back in UL in 2004 when I was studying physio and Alan was studying PE, and would have known each other through mutual friends. Then we kind of took our separate paths after college, and we were both with different people, and I suppose the kind of early last year we got back together again when we were both single, probably through the guise of tag rugby, really, which is another common ground for meeting people in these days.
It's really just a dating site for physically inclined people, isn't it? For sports fans.
Possibly.
But that's how you met. And what was it? Tell me a little bit about him. What was it about him that obviously you knew him a little bit before, but then obviously when you rekindled the relationship, what was it about him that brought you to that next phase?
Alan was very outgoing, personable, very sporty, athletic, so we probably had that in common as well. Just a really, really positive, confident person who, loved to help anyone out, impart his opinion, whether warranted or not at times, but very outgoing, personable person, and
Mayo man.
A Mayo man, yeah. He was working as PE teacher in Doon in Limerick, and a proud Mayo man. Played football up there with Claire Morris, where he's from, and really outgoing, really sporty, athletic, positive. Really lived life to the max. He was a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so
Was he climbing every mountain and swimming every ocean? Was he one of those, whatever he got his hands on?
He climbed Kilimanjaro back in 2006, I think, and he would have done scuba diving, skydiving, bungee jumping, travelled the world once he finished college for 8 months. So yeah, his loves were sport, travel, adrenaline, and skiing.
You. Let's not forget you in the middle of all those loves, because you must have had a great fun together because you're a sports fan. Fanatic is even better. So you would have had you were very well suited in that regard.
And I mean, all our friends in Limerick, Alan's housemates, we all would have been quite sporty and athletic, and I suppose you just finish work in the evenings and be it a football or rugby ball or frisbee, or just take his beloved dog Noosa, who's this beautiful Siberian husky, out for a walk. It was always being fit and active was the once we were doing that, we were happy, really.
You were happy. November the 11th, just last November, you had seen Alan that day, obviously.
I was actually sent home from work early with an eye injury from a sporting incident the previous day, so we were laughing about that, and then we met up, cooked dinner, and we were actually discussing we were going skiing in 7 weeks, and we were looking forward to also where we're going in June, because Alan couldn't just have one trip booked, he'd have to have another one in the pipeline. So we were looking up where we go for 2 weeks in June, and he was in tremendous form.
Yeah.
And then he went off to the gym with his brother Liam and friend Dave, and everything was fine. Did a full session like he normally would, and just at the very end, just his last exercise, he just instantaneously just suffered a brain hemorrhage and never regained consciousness again.
Just in the gym?
Yeah.
And was he in the middle of some sort of
he was near the end of it. I mean, he was an hour and a half into it, and just I think he was doing a squat, and he just put the bar down and looked back at Liam and Dave, and just dropped, and unfortunately he never spoke again. But I suppose in one way it was such a sudden, massive bleed to the brain that he never really suffered.
He never knew any pain.
He never,
But he didn't die there in the gym. I mean, he was brought to the hospital.
He was brought to the regional hospital in Limerick, where into A&E, and I suppose the nature of an aneurysm like that ruptures is that you don't, I suppose, die suddenly. It takes a while for the brain function to slowly decline. So he was placed in a ventilator while they tried to ascertain, what happened. They did some scans, and then it was a case of waiting and see if Alan would wake up or whether he'd regain consciousness once they weaned sedation. And unfortunately, that wasn't to be the case. Was
he ever compos mentis after that? No. So there was never a sense of consciousness returning, and he was in that state, waiting for events to take over.
Yeah, he was being kept artificially alive, really.
Were his parents around, or
Willie and Kathleen, Alan's parents, unfortunately for them, were in Lanzarote on holidays. Alan's brother Hugh also lives in Cardiff, so we had to try and, or Liam, Alan's brother, and Donal, his brother, who lived in Mayo, were in the hospital, and they had to try and coordinate to get them back.
Desperate phone calls to have to make.
Oh, absolutely horrific.
Can't even begin to think.
Incomprehensible, trying to pass on information like that, over the telephone.
Did you get to say goodbye to Alan in the sense that when you were in the hospital?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, he was there from the Monday night till the Monday evening about 9:30. He probably got to the hospital till the early hours of Wednesday morning when the transplant team came down, and we all got our chance to speak to him. I suppose it's still difficult. You always wish you had more time or more opportunities, but yeah, we got to speak to him, and the hospital staff were excellent at facilitating, I suppose, the beginning of the grieving process.
Yeah. When they eventually had to let him go, were you there for that moment?
Well, actually, because it was organ donation was going to happen, it was a case of actually bringing Alan to theatre for the transplant team, so it's a little bit different to your typical. Of course it is.
Yeah, I understand entirely. Yeah. Tell me, has you discussed organ donation with Alan at any level? I mean, you're so young in the sense that, what age are you now, if I may ask?
I'm 26.
26, and Alan was 28. So it's not the kind of conversation I know a lot of people might have in your 20s, but had you had that conversation?
Well, I actually work with cystic fibrosis patients in the hospital in Limerick.
Okay, so it would have been in your world, so to speak.
Yeah, we have patients waiting on transplant list and patients who've received transplants. And last February, excuse me.
Take a sip of water there. And with cystic fibrosis and with that milieu that you were working around, you would have been familiar with the world of transplants and the anticipation of this and this whole area.
So last February, a patient of mine received a transplant, and I was telling Alan all about it and how it was such a massive change to his life and his family's life, and how fantastic it was, and just being so delighted. And he really kind of took it on board and thought it was just amazing. And he said, if it ever occurred, then he definitely would want his organs donated. Now his driver's license was signed from years ago as well, and anyone who knew Alan would say he definitely would have no qualms about doing it. But I suppose it's a bit ironic that we would have had that conversation in February, and then with his mum Kathleen, he got her to sign his donor card in probably around the summertime.
So that when it came to him actually dying, he donated the various organs.
Yeah, all his organs were donated.
Everything.
So they saved 5 people's lives. So it's fantastic, really. And what made us very proud as well is Alan was such a fitness fanatic that he was in tip-top shape, and even the doctors in the region were saying it was nearly like a Rolls Royce that they were transplanting, because
it's a nice way of putting it.
I mean, he didn't smoke. He would have drank on social occasions, here and there, but and his heart must have so developed because he was so fit that it's just fantastic, really, that he was able to pass on such a wonderful gift to those who are probably the most vulnerable in our society. I'm
not medically informed enough to know how somebody that fit can die so young. Are you any wiser to that than I am?
Oh, I am no wiser to that, Ryan, I'm afraid. He probably had an aneurysm all his life that he didn't know about, which maybe that's a good thing in a way, that he lived life to the full, not realising that he had this aneurysm in his brain. It's incomprehensible, really. It was a real contradiction to life for us, because in our group of friends and anyone that knew Alan, he was really physically strong and fit, but he was really mentally strong as well, and outgoing, and he would be someone who'd face up to any adversity in life. So even though we knew how serious the clinical situation was in the hospital, if I thought anyone was going to survive, it would have been Alan. But unfortunately, it was just too big a hemorrhage, really.
How have you been since?
Well, I mean, it's very difficult. It's probably obviously the most difficult thing we'll ever go through for me and Alan's family and his friends. I suppose the first month was a real blur. You think you're accepting things and you think you understand the implications of death, but it's probably only even going back to the month's mind in the 14th of December, you realise that the previous month was just a complete blur, and you still pinch yourself and wonder, is it all, a horrible, horrible dream that you're hopefully going to wake up from? But unfortunately it isn't. But thankfully we've a fantastic network of friends.
Was Christmas tough?
Christmas just didn't really happen.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, the night before, the month's mind was supposed to be Alan's Christmas party and my own Christmas party, so we were heading back to Mayo for a month's mind rather than
the world was turned upside down for all the wrong reasons. Yeah.
The world stopped, really. I mean, it went on for obviously around you, but it stopped, really.
When you go to the funeral of the man that you loved, and you're watching this aberration take place of somebody so young going to so soon, and then you hear that maybe 5 people lived as a result of Alan's generosity. Is there any comfort to be taken from that, or do you still think, well, that's all very well and good, but I'm still devastated?
Well, actually, Donal, Alan's brother, said at the funeral, something we have to take note of is, instead of there being 6 funerals today, there was only 1, and it's very unfortunate that we are obviously the family that are suffering, but we're incredibly proud of Alan for the amazing gifts that he's given, the greatest gift of all, to these 5 people. I'm not sure if you would take comfort from it, because when I think about it, comfort isn't a word you can associate with death, but you take solace from the fact that, I mean, even though we don't know these people, we don't know their background story, on a human level you have this compassion that these people, they've suffered, and if they're on a waiting list for an organ, they haven't had a comfortable life either up until this point. And now to just have it turned around in such an amazing, fantastic way. I mean, we did take solace from it, and we were very, very proud of Alan, and it just helped us to feel that his death wasn't in vain, and that his greatness is living on through these people.
That must be some class of comfort, but as you say, we're more solace than comfort. You're a young woman, you've got one hopes your whole life ahead of you, and you were in town last night. Did you go and see Beyonce last night in the middle of it all, just to try and...
a good friend of mine, Mary, she's sitting outside, she got me tickets to have something to look forward to.
And did you enjoy yourself last night? I mean, are you able to see are you able to smile at all? Is it hard?
You're smiling, but it's different. Everything's a little bit tainted. Everything isn't as, you don't get as much enjoyment out of things like you used to before. I find I get a great release from sport, and I play basketball with Ewell Huskies in Limerick, and football, as you mentioned earlier, with Kerry, and my teammates and my coaches have been fantastic, and I find I get a great sense of relief going to training, going to matches, and having a goal and a focus, and it's something Alan would have wanted as well.
And it's good to have a friend
promoted.
It's good to have a friend to drag you up to a gig as well, to say, look, we'll look after you.
And she decided to accompany me as well. She's great.
Good on her. Okay. Speaking with the voice gone, with the cold and everything, I mean, Louise, it's ironic that you play for the UL Huskies, but nevertheless, Louise, some of them have been on to us by text to say that you're one of the most courageous players you will ever come across on the basketball court, and now she's showing that courage off the court for a great cause. So that's quite a sweet text of admiration for you. You're channeling a lot of your energy into raising awareness through your alanfeely.com. And you have a big sports extravaganza. You're sporting literally the T-shirt today.
Yes, and I've one for you, Ryan.
You have one for me. Well, okay. Well, I mean, I'll be a good sport and wear it at some stage. Alan's Sport Extravaganza, which is taking place in UL on August 2nd, with a view to doing what?
Basically, we've 3 aims to our event, Ryan. It is to promote organ donor awareness, promote physical activity, and then to commemorate Alan as well.
Yeah.
As we've already spoken, obviously, about the organ donation side of things, but unfortunately, even though 2013 was a record year for organ donation in Ireland, I think there was 293 organs transplanted, there's still 650 people roughly waiting organs in the country. So it's a constant, you know, a line of demand outweighing supply. So unfortunately, you know, we just like to keep that promotion side of things going. Then also physical activity. I mean, Alan lived life to the max. He was incredibly fit, and we'd like to promote physical activity as much as possible. It's just so important in today's society, and it would help prevent so many different diseases and help treat them. And even in terms of mental health, it's so important. I know for our group of friends and Alan's family, myself, physical activity, being fit and exercising and training is really helping our mental health at the moment as we try and go through this bereavement. And then also to commemorate Alan. I mean, he's such a fantastic individual who left an indelible mark on anyone that would have met him. So we just think a nice event like this in UL, in his alma mater, would really help to do that.
Well, Craig Middleton has been on from Claremorris GAA to say that Alan's club would like to say well done to Louise this morning, and the very best of luck with this most important of campaigns. Alan was a true gentleman, one of the most dedicated players our club has ever seen, and our club is a sadder place without him. However, this work that Louise and Alan's many friends are doing to highlight organ donation is a most fitting tribute to his memory, which is a lovely thing to say. Sue was on to say she's having a little cry this morning, but can you assure Louise and reassure her and her family that their selflessness has allowed so many to live, and those people thank Alan daily for their gift of life. Alan was my inspiration to get a donor card, which is again the domino effect of decency, I think, for a lot of people who are very much in admiration of what you're saying this morning. Organ donations, by the way, obviously you can get involved by free texting the word donor, DONO, or to the text number 550, that's 50050. Thanks for that, Colin. Louise, can wish you enough happiness into the future. And the sun comes out eventually, but slowly. And so look after yourself. And I think what you're doing is pretty admirable, to say the least. And we wish you and your friends and your family and Alan's family the best in all your endeavours. And thanks for coming.